I can make my peace with a lot of the has-been hotel designs, but Vaggie's pokes and prods at my brain every time I see her. Hello everyone. Just to reiterate some points from my Charlie video, I am not intending on making these animation friendly. More so looking at it as if I'm doing some kind of conceptualizing for the characters overall and visualizing those ideas. We're treating the official designs like they're just another step in the concept art creation process. You can kind of see what I mean when you look at the end result of Charlie's demon form and how different it is from the one in the show. However, this design will give you an even better idea of how I'm approaching the characters, as we're going to be making some changes on a fundamental level. I wasn't sure if I should structure this video with her angel or demon form first, since we're introduced to her as a demon, but chronologically, she was obviously an angel first. When I was doing my sketches for Vaggie, I started with her demon form, but ultimately I did sort of go back and forth, as I really want the two to feel both incredibly stark in comparison, while also having clear connections. As you can see, I ended up going with chronological order. So, we're starting with her Exorcist form, which means we should probably talk a little bit about that whole thing. Alright, okay. So in the show, hell is allegedly overpopulated, or at the very least the Pride Ring is, since that's where Lucifer reigns and the sinners appearing there is his punishment and all that. Well, for some reason, the solution to this overpopulation issue is to have an army of angelic women descend upon hell to haphazardly eliminate whatever poor sinner they see. Now, we know the real reason the angels are doing this isn't some misguided attempt to assist with the demon housing crisis, but rather a way to thin the numbers of their greatest threat in case they ever decide to overthrow the kingdom of heaven. It sounds like before her disappearance, Lilith had been rallying the people of hell with her performances, and at the very hint of peace, love, and unity in hell, heaven decided it was time to cull the herd. Now, even if Adam and Eve are real, surely hell is an ancient place, right? How long ago did this overpopulation issue begin? With all the people dying on Earth every day and the Pride Ring basically just being one single city, I'd imagine these annual exorcisms must be an established tradition dating back centuries. It's been 7 years. That's it. Even though Lilith had been in hell since Lucifer fell from heaven, her performances only started to be an issue 7 years ago. 7 years ago today was 2019. Relative to even just Charlie's lifespan, these mass killings just began, and for some reason hell agreed to it, and everyone acts like it's just a sad fact of life. I don't really understand how the first exorcism wasn't simply taken as a declaration of war, but hey, maybe that's something that we're just gonna learn more about at some point down the line in the series. Who knows? But even if there's some reason that all of the leaders of hell decided to allow it, why does nobody give a shit that this is happening? Like, even just the average Joe. Do they not care that they might get smited once a year? Sure, the sinners die frequently and respawn, so maybe they're just used to being in danger, but it seems like everyone is pretty aware that the angelic steel kills you, and nobody fights back either. Even though the angels are incredibly irresponsible and leave behind copious amounts of their holy, blessed, angelic steel weaponry, it took 7 years for a sinner to care enough to fight back against an exorcist? None of this adds up to me. I guess I simply must figure the exorcists don't undergo combat training, or they would know that they are vulnerable to their own blades, right? How do they not know that? I mean, if no one ever fights back, is there even a reason to train? But then I feel like it is implied that Vaggie and Lute were trained as soldiers, so maybe some people do fight back? It just hasn't led to an injury yet? Or is the training just meant for discipline and control? I don't know. For my interpretation, these exorcisms would be going on for much longer, making the current people of hell feel resigned to their continued existence, including Charlie, who would have been born into a world where they're already established. She doesn't know a world without them, yet still hopes to end the exorcisms via the hotel. Vaggie could still be one of the younger, lower-ranked exorcists, but I would very much like for her to be a similar age to Charlie. It's implied that the exorcists are not in fact dead humans, but rather heaven-born angels that were created by Adam for this particular purpose. Though I can't actually find if that was directly confirmed. I think Adam explicitly saying that he was the one who named Vaggie definitely supports it. So following that math, Lute and Vaggie are 7 years old. Obviously hate that. Also hate that her name is Vagina, but I guess it's not exactly out of place in this show. The name change subplot in season 2 is pretty weird. I think it would have been really sweet to have her actually change her name, but someone behind the scenes probably pointed out that that would destroy their SEO, so they kind of half-assed it. I don't think I've seen anyone actually drop the E when talking about her since then either. If they were going to do something like that, and half-ass it, it would have been better to have her just change the pronunciation but keep the spelling the same. Like if it started with her name as Vaggie in heaven and then she changed it to Vaggie in hell once she met Charlie, because I'm sure she would have hated it too. Then the reveal would just be that Adam says it the first way. Man, I don't know, her name is rough. Another thing I like about having the Exorcists be older and have more variation in their ages is that it makes it feel a little more understandable that they would have eventually strayed from maintaining perfectly matching uniforms, which I think would lead to more interesting character design opportunities, instead of them all just literally being copy-paste of each other. Yeah, you could say having them all look the same is the point, like a conformity thing, but I don't know, I feel like this show has so many opportunities for cool character design that they just throw away. I feel like it's just more fun and interesting, and it allows me to, somewhere down the line, give Loot her own design that isn't just the same as every other Exorcist, and more importantly, isn't the same as Vaggie. Speaking of, let's talk a little bit about what I did with this design. You probably noticed that she looks very human here, and that is intentional. I wanted it to be a way to show her holiness, and then to emphasize what she loses when she falls and becomes more animalistic. However, I actually did have an animal in mind for her while designing this form. A dove. If you don't know, doves are a very common symbol in Christianity. A dove with an olive branch was the signifier to Noah that the biblical flood was nearing its end. And extending an olive branch is an idiom used to mean reaching out to someone to establish peace. So for Vaggie's angel form, I wanted to have some olive theming in there as well. My first pass at her was rough. The double hennin did not fit the dove vibe. Replacing it with something rounder was much more visually cohesive, even though I really struggled with situating it. I found myself pretty stumped with the colors for a bit too. I tried using the colors of a mourning dove so that she wouldn't just be completely white, but she ended up reading much more hawky to me, especially with that headdress. And I think leaning into the pastels works way better because she is supposed to be a white dove, not a mourning dove. And I think it looks really good with the gold accents too. I gave her very minimal armor, as I feel like the Exorcist uniforms would be almost more like ceremonial garb, since they aren't leaving their spears behind willy-nilly in my version, and so they don't have to worry about being hurt by sinners, at least permanently, since any wound not inflicted by angelic steel would heal pretty fast. Vaggie's spear was another place I incorporated that olive branch motif, as well as the little face framing pieces of hair. That one's so subtle, but it's why I put them there, so I figured I'd mention it. She has dove wings, of course, as I think the wings would be the most obvious place to really show the birds I would be basing the Exorcist off of. And yes, I do have a different bird in mind for Loot. I think all of the Exorcists would be inspired by small birds, and then all of the 𝘧𝘢𝘬𝘭𝘭 would be larger bird species or something. I also want to mention that this is an outfit that in-universe is designed by and for Adam. So I wanted to go for something that was, you know, a little bit objectifying. The first iteration feels to me like she could fit right into 80s She-Ra. So she's showing quite a bit of skin, but I also wanted her character to show a bit, so she has some like draped fabric to cover herself up a little. She also keeps her hair covered in neat, as well as her rosary tucked into her belt. I think that would be a good item for her to keep even once she's living in hell, both for nostalgia's sake and because, to me, it refers quite directly to repentance and Mother Mary, which shows Vaggie's devotion to a caring female figure rather than the asshole that she was actually serving. Oh, and I wanted to make sure she had a bow on her somewhere. It's Vaggie. I feel like she's just gotta have a bow. I have seen so many redesigns for Hazbin Hotel over the years, and Vaggie in particular is one that always seems a little bit off to me. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but even when the design itself is great, it still just doesn't seem quite right, more so than any other character. At first, I thought I felt this way because she doesn't really fit in with the rest of the cast at the hotel. I mean, she's the only one there that isn't actually a demon. Her color palette alone makes her feel pretty incongruous to the others. But one day I realized that I think a big part of it is her theming. This show has a good few characters with themes that aren't exactly apparent on first glance. But Vaggie's moth motif in particular is so minimal that I'm not sure if it's just a lie she tells to get people to believe she's a regular sinner. The updated look they gave her for the actual show makes it a little bit clearer than in the pilot, but it's mostly just because of her hair, which is something she could definitely change to support her claims, right? I mean, we literally see another moth demon. So is the fact that there's two meant to kind of point out how Vaggie doesn't really look like a moth? To show that, like, her demon motif is a lie because she's not a demon? Is it supposed to be, like, something that could support the theory that she's an angel? Are we supposed to, like, compare and contrast here? I mean, it's the only animal motif we see twice. I don't know. It's always been weird to me. But also, it never really even comes up. We only know she's a moth because of, like, outside sources. Ugh. She really doesn't look that different from when she was an exorcist. And we know the others don't change forms when they enter hell. They just wear those dumb LED spirit Halloween masks. But if any of this is the case, then Vaggie is truly just an angel that got marooned in hell. And I think the fact that she gets her wings back supports that, too. In my opinion, it would be a lot more impactful if Vaggie truly fell from her status. It can still be that Lute resented her and took the first opportunity she saw to strip her of her wings and leave her behind. But when Vaggie starts to embrace her life there and fall for Charlie, she actually falls, like with a capital F. This also works much better if Charlie knows from the beginning that she's an exorcist and decides to tend to her wounds anyway, which is both incredibly sweet and in character for her. I always liked that Charlie and Vaggie were together at the start of the story. I feel like the protagonist having an established relationship when the show begins is pretty rare, but I am definitely in the camp that feels like their love story gets severely overshadowed by the male romances in the show. With Charlie and Vaggie, it just is kind of like, yeah, they're dating and that's it. There's the drama of her being insanely devoted to her girlfriend, yet lying about who she is, but that entire thing felt pretty forced to me, especially when Carmilla acts like Vaggie being an angel was the most obvious thing in the world.
Wait, you know I'm an exorcist? How?
You have a giant X over your eye and wield an angelic spear. It's not rocket science.
Not only does that make Charlie look kind of dumb, but it also points and laughs at any viewers who may not have guessed the twist. I also just hate lampshading. It's just like a major pet peeve of mine. There's also nothing about Charlie that should make Vaggie seem like she can't trust her with that information. It's such a weird decision. She should have known. I was so disappointed when I was watching it and I realized that Charlie didn't know. Anyway, in this version, we have the Princess of Hell choosing to look past the fact that the creature she found lying in the street in a pool of her own blood is an exorcist, and selflessly helping her to safety. And that same angel falling in love so deeply with a demon that she chooses to renounce her heavenly status and become a demon herself. I think that is honestly a very compelling love story. And I think that Vaggie would actually find herself to be a lot happier in hell, which is something I wanted to show in her design. At first I kept drawing her with her little pout since I figured she would still have a similar personality as in the show, but eventually I was like, no, she needs a little smile. Okay, so you know why I wanted to change her motif in the first place, but I should probably explain what I changed it to and why. As you saw, her angel form was based on a dove, a revered bird in Christianity. And as you can likely see now, her demon form is also a bird, specifically a rock dove, or as you may know them, a pigeon. Anyone out there who knows about pigeons may also know that they are actually domesticated, but are considered by many to be abandoned by humans and left to fend for themselves as we pretend that they're still wild animals. I think that's a pretty apt analogy to how Vaggie feels about heaven. They created her, raised her to be a soldier and fight for them, only for her to be mutilated and left for dead by one of her own. She becomes a common city bird, yet is still influenced by her past and feels compelled to serve. And maybe I just think a pigeon working at a hotel is kind of funny. Another thing is that pigeons famously have this iconic, lovely pattern to their feathers, while doves are pure white. And I think that's a sweet representation of Charlie adding color into Vaggie's life, changing her worldview to be more nuanced, and allowing her space to feel her emotions and be a little rebellious. That brings me to her outfit. 𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘦𝘭𝘭's art style has always been very influenced by scene fashion. I mean, every time she draws herself, she has raccoon tails, and I think she still has them in real life. I don't know, she did for a long time, if she doesn't anymore. And Vaggie always seemed to be the character that really exemplified that style to me the most. However, as a former teeny-weeny little mall rat, I honestly don't really think it fits her. I did still want to go with something that relates to a real-life alternative style to represent her breaking out from a rigidly structured environment and learning to be herself. And the one I really ended up liking for her is a subset of 𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘢 called 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘢. Okay, now hear me out. I was introduced to this subculture through Momo Ayase from Dandadan, and I feel like her vibe fits pretty well with what I imagined for Vaggie here. What initially made me connect it to Vaggie was honestly the big bow. Like I said before, I feel like Vaggie just has to have one. I associate them with her real heavy for some reason. She wears a bow. Maybe I like the fact that it's something stereotypically feminine, but it's used for such an aggressive character. There's also this kind of symbolism of her being someone that was very put together, distinguished, and even fussy, which would continue to her time at the hotel, I'm sure, even if she's more pleasant overall. The bow also has two distinct mirrored sides, so having it be so prominent in her character design works as a nod to her having been on both sides of the show's conflict. Anyways, back to 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳. It's a style of fashion that is specifically for teens, which could tie into Vaggie still being a relatively young angel, but also the fact that it utilizes a uniform made it feel more cohesive with her place at the hotel. I have Charlie's everyday design being a uniform, and so I kind of like that Vaggie's is a variation on a uniform too. Still, she's not as button-up and polished as she is in the show, wearing a baggy cardigan, miniskirt, and loose bow, all staples of 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘳𝘢𝘳 fashion. She also has the leg warmers that you typically see in such outfits, which acts as a nice way for me to hide the transition between her feathers and her bare scaly bird feet. I think that giving her a specific type of fashion found on Earth is also nice because she never actually lived there, and so finding her new sense of style would be a nice way to connect with humanity now that she's no longer killing them and stuff. I really love the contrast between her skin-tight outfit in heaven and the super comfy vibe of her demon form outfit. I always thought her outfit in the pilot kind of looked like pajamas. Plus, I think this version of Vaggie probably has full arm wings under there, so the loose-fitting clothes give her somewhere to tuck all of her feathers. I even think once she officially falls and transforms into her demon form and has wings again, flying would probably be a very rare occurrence for her, as it reminds her of her time as an exorcist. She would also have to remove her clothes down to her bra to fully reveal her wings, but hey, this is an adult show, right? So that's fine, and we could get some very funny reactions from Charlie out of that too.
Whoa, hey!
I imagine she also avoids flying now, as it feels quite silly to flap her arms rather than having her wings on her back. I wonder what happened to those after Luke cut them off anyway. She still keeps her hair similar to before, as I still want that round silhouette that matches a dove/pigeon, and I like that it makes her a bit recognizable. But now it is in two low buns rather than her golden hairnet. Other than changing her motif from moth to pigeon, the biggest difference from her canon design to mine is that she still has both of her eyes. I don't really care for the floating X she has in the show. I think there's probably a way it could have been done that I would have liked. Like if it was more so redacting that part of her face like a sensor bar. You know how Mickey ears are the same no matter which way he turns his head? Maybe if it was like that. I don't know. But it also leads to that scene with Carmilla that I talked about. I feel like the changes between her angel and demon form is clear enough with these designs that I don't really need to add in something like that to further differentiate them. Plus, because they are so different, I actually like that her face looks pretty similar. I made her eyes a very particular shade of pink, and if I remember to avoid using that color with anybody else's eyes, it would be a pretty cool connection between the two forms that make them both immediately identifiable as Vaggie between flashbacks and modern day. This one felt very good to get out of my mind palace and into the real world. I've had the idea of changing her to a pigeon for like a year, and it was what made me want to play with the rest of the characters too. Seeing both forms side by side is very satisfying to me. I love the contrast in her poses and the happy accident that I gave her two props that represent her duties. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed until the end. Reminder that I have my card in the video description with links to my socials, info about commissions, and my Etsy shop. I would love to hear in the comments how you guys feel about such a drastic redesign, and if you like what I made, definitely subscribe for more. I'd like to continue with this Has-Been series, and I've got a lot more ideas for other characters, but I'll also be getting back on my Winx bullshit very soon. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I really want to draw this Vaggie cuddling with Charlie redesign, especially her big demon form. I'll probably do Angel next for the Has-Beens. I don't know.